Good evening, everyone. I think we'll start. Please, those who do not speak, mute your microphones. Today we discuss, from my point of view, a very important issue. And I decided to organize this discussion because in the aftermath of the Second Karabakh War, we see very tense developments in South Caucasus region, especially maybe in Georgia. It's not surprising because Georgia now is surrounded by Russian military. What I mean is that Russian military bases in Armenia, Russian army is now in Azerbaijan, and the Russian army is on Georgia's occupied territories. So today we will discuss with our distinguished speakers both domestic and foreign politics in South Caucasus countries, as well as security issues, which are very important, of course. Months ago, I had a session where we discussed cooperation between Georgia and NATO, and using this opportunity, I would just want to once again repeat the importance of this cooperation now. Before we start, I would like to also welcome our distinguished guests, especially ambassadors, Ambassador of Lithuania, Czech Republic, United States, Estonia, Romania, and Croatia. Welcome our guests from European Union countries and United States, and of course from South Caucasus countries. My gratitude to you for your time and for your interest in regional developments. Our distinguished speakers today are EU Special Representative for the South Caucasus, Mr. Tойво Клаар, Director of the Regional Studies Center, Mr. Richard Garakasan, Chairman of the Center of Analysis of International Relations, Ambassador Farid Shafiев, President of the International Relations Council, Dr. Mustapha Aydın, and fellow at the EPRC, lecturer at the Baltic Defense College, Ambassador Shota Gvinieri. Please, I would like to start with 5-minute speeches of each of our participants for our South Caucasus speakers to cover both domestic and foreign politics, changes after the war. I would like to, with our distinguished participants, to focus today not on something that happened yesterday, but maybe on today and tomorrow. What we see in the future, what we see tomorrow. And for our guests from Turkey and European Union, I would like you to talk a bit about Turkey and European Union role in South Caucasus region. From my perspective, Turkey played a huge role in last developments, and its influence is also increasing in the region. And unfortunately, I would say that OSCE Minsk group was not very effective in conflict resolution. And I would like to start with Mr. Tойво Клаар, EU Special Representative for the South Caucasus. Please, your opening remarks.
Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for inviting me. I will only be able to join, as I already announced, the first half of the session, which is not the reflection on the topic, but rather on the intense program that of meetings that I have had and still have in Tbilisi this week, and where, of course, the topic of discussion has also very much been the topic of the conference today. This year was a very challenging one for the South Caucasus. Not only had we the war with Armenia and Azerbaijan, we also had the COVID pandemic. We also had a change in power in Sukhumi, and we had elections in Georgia. The European Union has been working closely with the governments in Georgia, in Armenia and Azerbaijan in fighting COVID, and we will continue to work together to overcome this pandemic. We are heavily invested in the conflict in Georgia, and I had many experts on next steps in this regard. Regarding the war between Armenia and Azerbaijan, there are commentators who have said that the EU was not sufficiently involved. I would disagree. The EU stood squarely behind the European co-chair of the Minsk group, France, and High Representative Josep Borrell was also personally involved through numerous contacts with his Armenian and Azerbaijani counterparts. The present situation that we have, the November ceasefire that was brokered by Russia, is undoubtedly challenging. The population of Armenia, which has to come to terms with a military loss, and that is And it is especially difficult for those in Azerbaijan and families who lost loved ones or their homes in the fighting. The situation, and the EU has stepped in to support our Armenian friends through humanitarian assistance, and just as we have provided humanitarian assistance also to Azerbaijan and our friends there. We stand ready to do more, and our delegations in Baku and Yerevan are engaged in discussions with the authorities on what and how the EU can do more. I also intend to visit both capitals in the near future to discuss the way forward, because I believe that there are very interesting prospects for future cooperation for the three South Caucasus countries, where the EU, through its history of promoting regional cooperation, is uniquely placed to provide impetus and support. There is a long way to go before we get there from here, and wounds from the fighting will have to heal, or at least to be bandaged first. This implies finalizing the handover of prisoners, ensuring the safety of local populations along new and sometimes still ill-defined dividing lines and borders, and also that we move from the rhetoric of war to the rhetoric of peace. This will take time, but the EU stands with our three South Caucasus partners to make the most of the opportunities for this challenging situation that this challenging situation offers. So in closing, I would say that the possibilities, as you said, possibilities are there. The possibilities can be grasped, but it will require wisdom, it will require patience from all leaderships to get there. And the European Union, as I said, is ready to work with all partners to make sure that the South Caucasus is not only, and particularly Armenia and Azerbaijan, we don't only have a ceasefire, but we move into a new and peaceful and prosperous future for the entire South Caucasus. Thank you.
Thank you. Considering that you have very little time today, could you please tell me what will be your message now for three Caucasus countries on behalf of your own understanding or on behalf of European Union in regard with trilateral cooperation and its perspective? Will European Union support it, and is it kind of a way out now? Cooperation between all three regional countries.
Well, as I said, I think it will be important that we first learn to walk before we run, and that means that the wounds of the war have to heal, or at least be bandaged, as I said. But I do believe that, and I have heard that also here in Tbilisi, that there are possibilities for regional cooperation. And I think there are possibilities for regional cooperation in a way that is a win-win situation for the three South Caucasus countries. It's a win-win situation also for all the countries bordering the South Caucasus. And we, from the European Union, I think we have a unique possibility to, and we have a unique experience to offer here. We already have very close and intense cooperation through the Eastern Partnership, and we have worked on various transport projects already with our partners. Again, I think there are a lot of possibilities, but this will require time, patience, and understanding from us, but also from all regional actors, to understand that this is not something we can achieve tomorrow, but it is something we can start working towards, and the EU is there to support that.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. We started with position from European Union, so I would like to continue with position from Turkey. Dr. Mustapha Ayden, could you please evaluate current situation and a role of Turkey in regional developments in South Caucasus, please?
Thank you very much. Thank you for the. For Turkey, of course, region several has importance from several aspects, from strategic, economic, political, including energy and political aspects. Already before the latest developments, Turkey had extensive connections in the region with Azerbaijan and in Georgia, extending from military training to economic partnership, mutual investments, logistical connections, and etc. This latest developments, although they are deplorable in themselves, would allow Turkey to be more actively involved in the region if Turkish relations are addressed in the future. Obviously, there was a period when Turkey extensively competed in the region with Russia. However, that has changed in recent years, especially after 2010s, and Turkish approach have been different in the region and around the region. And currently, after the recent crisis, I think this development has allowed Turkey now to increase even its presence in the region. It could contribute to regional development, region-wide projections. Turkey already has extensive experience in the Black Sea region to developing regional partnership institutions and initiatives, which could be transferred easily into the Caucasus. Most of you would have remembered there were different discussions in the 1990s, late 1990s, about different type of region-wide cooperations. 3+3, 3+2, 3+1, and etc. I think now, with the settlement of Nagorno-Karabakh, more or less, the time has come yet again to talk this kind of region-wide initiatives. Obviously, I am aware, and we all have to aware the difficulties also. One of the biggest difficulty is now for the Armenian society to come to the terms with the recent events, and also we should not forget that there is not the resolution of Nagorno-Karabakh has not reached yet, although we have more or less seen the change of territory, but the peace agreement has not been yet. So I'm looking forward for that kind of relations between Azerbaijan and Armenia. And depending on that result, there is a possibility now for Armenia to resolve their differences. One of the biggest obstacles, and the obstacle that Turkey mentioned to keeping its border closed with Armenia, was the Nagorno-Karabakh, occupation of Nagorno-Karabakh. So that's out of the way now. There is an opportunity for Turkey and Armenia to talk about their own issues and restart this rapprochement process where we had in late 1990s. If we can manage to move along those lines, then there is a real opportunity of creating region-wide economic development programs, opening the borders, creating more linkages, affecting the region really to as all the countries are really asking. We recently completed the first trial run of the first train from Istanbul to Taiwan with the connection of the Caucasus. So this kind of connections with the opening borders and establishment of railroads and train connections with all the regional countries, including Armenia, would definitely bring prosperity and more economic wealth to the region and all the countries involved. And I think Turkey is one of the countries that stands to gain from this kind of movement. And there is, of course, investment opportunities if we can move along this line, both for Turkish business people and also regional countries coming to invest in Turkey. And of course, all the problems of the region was not and still is not only related to Nagorno-Karabakh. There are other problems, and especially the territorial integrity of Georgia is still not maintained. It's still in question here. So we have to see development there in order to be able to do something covering all the regional countries. Political stability is, from my perspective, is still important. Especially, we have to see what's going to happen politically in Armenia and maybe in Georgia in next few years. We have to see increase in greater representative governance in various regional countries. There is a need for the economic development, especially with the COVID-19 crisis hitting all the countries very hard. We need a sustained effort and international support for that, also for the regional countries to recover and to reach. Let me stop here. I think that kind of initial remarks would be enough.
Could you please tell me the follow-up question? You said in the beginning of your speech about competition with Russia. At the moment, some experts say that at the moment we see competition between Turkey and Russia in the region. I mean, competition in regard with influence, increasing its influence regionally. And some others say that Turkey is cooperating with Russia in the region. How do you believe, what is your understanding of this process? Is it a competition or balancing the Kremlin's politics, or it's a competition and influence, please?
Well, I have been describing Turkish-Russian relations for years, I mean, at least for the last 5 years, competitive cooperation. So it's both competition and cooperation. And it's not only related to the Caucasus, it's not only limited to the Caucasus. You have seen what's been happening in Syria, in Libya, in the Black Sea in general. Obviously, Turkey has come to a conclusion that exclusive competition and intense competition with Russia is not good for Turkish economy or good for Turkish policy in the region. But exclusive cooperation either doesn't really fit for Turkish needs. So there is both competition and cooperation. And from the Turkish perspective, without acknowledging, I think there is an intensive attempt for balancing Russia. And again, this is not only limited to the Caucasus. We see the same thing in Syria, in Eastern Mediterranean, in the Black Sea in general. We might see a tendency to see intensification of this issue, the balancing of Russia in the coming months, depending on what the United States is vis-a-vis Russia, the Black Sea region.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for your speech. Now, Ambassador Farid Shafiev, representative of Azerbaijan, please, your opening remarks in regard with both domestic and foreign politics changes after the war. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Try to be brief in 5 minutes. So many important questions. I'll start also with economic opportunities. As you said, we are not going to touch the issue of history and the past. Economic opportunities, we had the meeting in Moscow, and now we expect the meeting of deputy prime ministers of Armenia and Azerbaijan and Russia to discuss the transport projects. The Mustapha Aydın mentioned that in the end of 90s, there was proposal about establishing so-called stability pact in the Caucasus. When I remember there's some European institutions, Michael Emerson from Brussels, Institute of European Policy Center, something like that. I don't remember exactly. He was also promoting with the formula, different formulas, 3+3+2. three South Caucasian countries, Iran, Turkey, Russia, plus United States. Indeed, as the war is over, it doesn't mean that the political problems is over. I'll come to that question. But finally, we have opportunity to have the prospect for, wider regional cooperation. I would like to address few concerns with this regard. For example, some people some Georgian experts said that the Georgian role will be diminished because of the so-called Nakhchivan corridor will function. I don't think so. Maybe in terms of certain cargo numbers, the role will be diminished. But first of all, I would like to stress that the energy projects which Azerbaijan built through Georgia to Turkey and now the South Corridor, it is unlikely it will stay there for the next 20 years at least. You know, the projects that we're speaking about, South Corridor, the energy corridor. But even in terms of the cargo flow, we're speaking about the long-term projects, the railway projects. I believe the Tbilisi cars will be still relevant. So will be maybe, again, as I said, in terms of the number in the future, maybe in 5-6 years, if the Nakhchivan corridor will be fully operational. The role of Iran will also concern about the diminished role of Iran because the Nakhchivan region of Azerbaijan Autonomy Republic of Azerbaijan was under blockade, and the cargo was delivered through Iran or through Georgia, Turkey in a long way. Of course, through Nakhchivan will get easy access, but Iran can tap on the north-south corridor, especially if they resolve the issue with the Biden administration. And even future with Armenian railway through Nakhchivan to Iran. I think the opportunity is much more promising rather than just now to be concerned about the problems. I mean, in terms of the transport flow, the cargos. But of course, there's some of also in terms of the opportunities for Russia to be connected with Armenia through Azerbaijan's territory. In terms of problems after the November 10th, yes, there is the political problem with implementation Article number 4, the full withdrawal of Armenian armed forces. So that is not implemented fully. Armenian also claims about their POW, the prisoners of war, which Azerbaijani side believe that those people, because the swap already has happened, where the Armenian side referring to the 62 Armenian nationals. I would like to underline Armenian nationals from the Republic of Armenia, which will penetrate the territory of Azerbaijan after in December and killing one civilian, the guy who was working for the mobile operator. So Azerbaijan consider them is not as a POW, and that position also the third party of this trilateral agreement, Russia, also think that they are not POW, but the Russian foreign minister said the swap should be anyway happened. Among those 62, there are two nationals of Lebanon, Armenians, Terzian and Hajizian. I might mispronounce the names. But also I would like to mention, which Israeli mentioned, that despite these political problems, Azerbaijan undertook a number of positive steps in terms of the political, in the political domain. First, Azerbaijan postponed the return of Kalbajar from November 15th to November 25th to allow Armenians, and as you know, in Kalbajar, most Armenians were settlers because before the conflict, very handful of Armenians lived in Kalbajar. But instead, the houses were looted and forest and the houses were burned. The second, Azerbaijan gave 1,200 dead bodies, which was found on the territory of Azerbaijan to the Armenian side. The third step, Azerbaijan also allowed to use its territory for the highway Goris-Kafan. And the fourth element of this positive steps taken by the government of Azerbaijan is the Azerbaijan allowed humanitarian cargo to be delivered through Azerbaijan's territory by Russian peacekeepers through Ganja, through Barda, to the Armenians living in Nagorno-Karabakh region of Azerbaijan. I think this is rarely mentioned, and actually I've never seen any mention of these steps in the Armenian media, and even in international media. But these steps which was undertaken by Azerbaijan side. In terms of the domestic policy, I think the #1 task is the restoration of occupied territories. This is a huge task, a probably unique situation when after 30 years the country steps in to reconstruct, to rebuild, and we're speaking that especially the regions like Fizuli, Jabrayil, Agdam, they were fully destroyed. All houses, there is no roofs on any single house except some military installations. So this is the #1 task and the #1 issue in terms of the domestic policy is to restore and to ensure that after a certain time the Azerbaijani refugees and IDPs might return back to their home after 30 years. So that's in the nutshell within the 5 minutes. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, well, I will ask some questions a bit later. Now I'll give the floor to Ambassador Shota Gvineriya. Could you please tell us what is your perspective of Georgian domestic and foreign politics changes? And first of all, maybe security challenges that Georgia faces at the moment. Will you agree with me saying that it is maybe the most dangerous period after war in 2008?
Yes. First of all, thank you very much for this opportunity to be here in this meeting. I see a lot of friends and colleagues from all over the world in the audience. So it is really a great opportunity to discuss this matters of vital importance actually for the whole region and for Georgia without a doubt in this format. So first of all, let me start by emphasizing that we do not need to have any illusions that Russia has disappeared from the landscape as a destructive actor. And Russia's interests in the region have changed in a way after the war in Nagorno-Karabakh. Absolutely not. So Russia's interests in the first place always have been and still are to increase its influence and pressure in the region, which it effectively achieved after the peace deal between Azerbaijan and Armenia, because now Russia has officially and the jure and also on the ground have troops, contingent, military contingent in all 3 South Caucasus countries. And this is an important development for them. So we do not have any illusions that Russians will be happy with big regional cooperation projects, and they will be actually encouraging this cooperation from any perspective. And they will not use their increased influence and footprint in the region to support this kind of new regional initiatives. We all have to be ready and be prepared for that. From the strategic perspective, before we zoom into the region itself, it is important, I think, to underline and analyze that with the COVID pandemic situation all around the world, one of the consequences that every expert is actually predicting that will stay with us here as a long-term consequence of the pandemic crisis is the regionalization. Now, there in this regionalization, there are many different important points, and different political actors and different experts do see this regionalization in a different way, depending on what their view of the world system is. So definitely for the revisionist worldview, where Russians are and other revisionist actors are basically trying to destroy the rules-based international system and increase their influence in their respective neighborhoods and create a sort of multipolar world where big regional players have the right to operate in the region at the expense of the smaller and weaker neighboring states. That's the construct. It has not gone anywhere. So Russia sees the possibility right there. And this is very obvious that by, undermining or I don't want to say undermining, but basically proving the inefficiency of the international mechanisms with regard to bringing peace to the war between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and negotiating a deal with 3 signatures on the paper after the attempts from President of France, after the attempts of the Secretary of State of the United States. That all happened. Yes, of course, I agree with the previous speakers on that in October, European and the US actors, they tried to influence the process. They had extensive negotiations with the parties, but in the end, what happened is that the deal was achieved by the mediation from Moscow, and there is a Russian signature on that deal. So my main point here is that, of course, we all are in the same boat. Of course, there is no prospect for us to achieve too much in developing our countries or promoting regional peace or prosperity without cooperation with each other. But we have to understand that there will be the obstacles along this way, and we will have to invest much more and much more specifically into the understanding, common understanding of the future of the region. This is the most important thing. And I was very happy when I read that Azerbaijan and Turkmenistan are, advancing their cooperation. They will have a joint exploration of the disputed areas, long disputed areas in Caspian. They signed the agreement on cooperation in transport and logistics area. This is all great. This is all very good. So we will need to take advantage of that. We will have to talk to each other in much profound and much more detailed way to see what is the future of that region and what the role of every player in this bigger geopolitical game will be.
Could you please briefly highlight the major security challenges at the moment? Do you see that this? Yeah. Do you see that this active presence of Russian Federation is making Georgia surrounded by Russian forces from each side?
Of course, you can feel enormous pressure in Tbilisi and in Georgia from Russia and Moscow. I wouldn't say that at this point in time, conventional military threat from the Russian Federation is most likely. Because they have very effectively exploited other tools of influence in Georgia. And what they see in Georgia is exactly what they need. Polarized country, 2 different opposing groups of politicians, the media, the society living in their own bubbles and ready to, ready to kill each other over the differences of the opinion, So this is the environment which is the paradise for the Russian Federation. They do have a lot of opportunities to influence Georgia in this hybrid environment. So this is definitely a great threat that Russian influences in Georgia are increasing every time. And they are, I would say, all-time high in the independent Georgia's history after regaining independence. But if, specifically to your question, I think that Russians have learned the lesson from the intervention in 2008 and their mistakes with regard to Ukraine, and they will do their best at this point to actually use non-military elements of their national power to achieve the same objectives. Don't get me wrong, the objectives have not changed, and the thing that they will not probably use too much military pressure on Georgia does not mean that their hostile objectives are not there and they do not have the means to achieve those hostile objectives with regard to Georgia.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Unfortunately, I don't see our fifth speaker, Mr. Richard Gerakasyan, presenting here, and he is not responding. But I would like to ask if it's possible, Ms. Anush Beglоян, to present Armenian position. Anush Bеглоян is a member of the Foreign Committee of National Assembly of Armenia. So please, challenges in domestic and foreign politics of Armenia at the moment.
Thank you very much, distinguished speakers. I heard your comments with the great interest. And also, I was not preparing to speak today, but I would like to highlight some important theses that I think are worth to mention in this meeting. First of all, Armenian society and Armenian government has quite well understand that these regional developments that have taken place recently can be a start for establishing regional security and trust between all countries that are present in the Caucasus and in the region, in the wider region. And I hear a lot of positive vibes in the speeches of Mr. Ambassador and also from Georgia, that this understanding is shared at least with this in this audience. So what we need to do and what is Armenia is ready to do for establishing the system of regional security. This is, first of all, establishment of trust that was effectively being destroyed during the last post-Soviet years. And the trust was destroyed in all societies, trust towards each other, trust towards big regional players, trust in the future of the region. And now we have a few problems that, from our point of view, can really deteriorate our efforts to establish the communications, transportation, start regional projects, and learn to live together in the region for the benefit of the region. Mr. Ambassador has mentioned few circumstances, and I have to disagree on the fact that prisoners of war that are now being held in Azerbaijan were taken on Azeri territory. These people were taken hostage from the villages of Khataberd and Nohintare, which were a month after establishment of trilateral agreement. And at that time, according to the trilateral agreement, this area was not part of the area that was being transferred to under control of Azeri armed forces. So that's what Armenian position is, and we still consider these people as prisoners of war. And we think that anyway, the taking prisoners of war after the military operations are ceased doesn't contribute to this peace, to the peace and regional security. Second thing which concerns Armenian side is the military exercises that will be held by Turkey and Azerbaijan, which also we think do not contribute to the establishment of the peace and trust and regional security. Third thing that I would like to mention as a problem, and this has to be extensively discussed either bilaterally between Armenia and Azerbaijan or with the participation of the other countries in the region, is the issue of cultural heritage and preservation of the Christian cultural heritage on the areas that have been transferred to Azeri under control of the Azeri military forces. So we think that some declarations and some statements that are being voiced out do not contribute also to the establishment of trust and regional security. I would like to mention that all these problems are, of course, subject to be solved, and it's nothing that cannot be solved. So we think that any movement, any plans for the future of this region, including Russian presence in the region, military presence in the region, which has been mentioned, is a matter of solution if the countries in the region that are present in the region will establish a reliable regional security system that does not require additional presence of anyone. Then, to finalize my speech, I would like to thank everyone, and I would like to thank the European Union, of course, for being present in the region, for playing very important role in post-Soviet, post-war developments, and so we look forward for the more involvement of the European Union, even more involvement. Because I think that the region needs a balance of various players, powerful players, to balance each other anyway. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Please don't leave us. We will now have some questions. And please, our distinguished guests, if you have some questions, raise your hands or text it in chat. And I will just start. Yeah, please.
Thank you. Well, it's always interesting to hear different perspectives, particularly on regional issues as such. Well, I'm joining the debate from Azerbaijan. I'm counselor at the Turkish Mission Embassy in Baku. And with your permission, I would like to make some general comments and then ask a few questions to the panelists, and they're all welcome to comment. Well, Turkey has always supported and will always lend its support to Azerbaijan in Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, not that because we're brotherly nations, but due to the fact that Azerbaijan has been right and just in its endeavors to restore its internationally recognized territories. And Azerbaijan, like Turkey, is also visionary in its approaches to regional matters and promotes sustainable peace, cooperation, and welfare on the basis of regional ownership. And as we see, after the war, after 30 years, the region finally has opportunity and conditions conducive to building sustainable peace. And all the countries in the region can reap the benefits of peace and economic opportunities involved, which some of the panelists rightly touched upon. And of course, not everything may stand as in the most desirable state, but we all, of course, want to see sustainable peace in Karabakh without the need for peace or monitoring missions on the ground. And we all want to see peaceful, stable, and economically developed Karabakh, which was not possible in the past 30 years. And now it has the prospect to achieve all this. And for this aim, we all believe that every side has a role to play. So my question is about the role of diaspora and Armenian, for instance, or others that can play or contribute to or sponsor, even with the vast amount of resources that can be mobilized so easily as we saw it during the war, but this time to support the peace building efforts in the regions. And I want to ask, what positive things can they do to support peace or to support building trust among the two communities? And also second question that comes to mind is which international organizations could contribute best to promote peace projects in the region? I thank you.
Thanks a lot. First of all, I would like to say that we in Georgia are trying to initiate lots of different kind of projects to invite our friends from Armenia and Azerbaijan and discuss some formats together. But of course, please, first, Mr. Ambassador Farid Shafiев.
Thank you very much. Just a few remarks. Indeed, would like again highlight, probably we now should concentrate on the way how to reconcile to people, and it's not easy task after so many wounds, after so many 30 years, there's first and second war. But I belong to generation where I studied together with Armenians and with ours in the school, and Armenians lived in Azerbaijan, and Azerbaijanians lived in Yerevan and in Armenia. We have to break this cycle of mutual accusation. They mentioned about cultural heritage. The Azerbaijan also concerned about cultural heritage. Virtually none left in the territory of modern Armenia, and the occupied territories, many mosques, about 60 mosques destroyed. So I think this issue should not be selectively picked up, but should be in a package. Let's say both cultural heritage should be preserved, and probably the international organization should play a role. And unfortunately, we see that some international organizations speaking one side, expressing concern about one cultural heritage and disregarding another one. But I agree with the point about Anush Beglоян made about maybe we in a few years, I don't know, in 5 and 10 years, will create a situation when we will not need we won't need the foreign troops on our territory. That's the ideal situation. The military, we don't have military base in Armenian, Russian military base. Now we have the Russian peacekeepers. In order to achieve the security architecture in the region, we have to agree on certain principles. And I think my Georgian colleague will agree with me that one of the pillars of the regional security system, and we're referring to European Union, here we see so many ambassadors from European Union, one of the main pillars of the European security is the principle of territorial integrity. Once we agree on that, respect to each other's territorial integrity, then we can move forward. Definitely issue of the protection of minorities, cultural and some other rights, some self-rule engagements, that also should come in order to ensure that all ethnic minorities live in peace and harmony. And the question about probably diaspora should be addressed not by, we don't have really the big diaspora, Azerbaijan diaspora, at least it's not the big factor in our domestic politics or foreign policy. But a role of international organization, I think, yes, the peace building experience, European Union might play a role. And Georgia was always the place where the civil society members met in Tbilisi. And probably we have to now maybe Georgia won't have the monopoly. Maybe we have to gradually move into both countries some of the institutions which will work in terms of reconciliation. Thank you.
I like the monopoly a lot. Could you please, Ambassador Shafiev, could you please also add Mr. Andrus Ratz from German Council on Foreign Relations is asking, do you have some information about the current size and composition of the Russian peacekeepers in Azerbaijan?
Well, according to the agreement, it's 1,960 people. There's some additional people coming for the work of the humanitarian center. And the main issue that we have not agreed with Russians on the mandate of Russian peacekeeping forces. Two issues standing. The first issue, as I mentioned, the Article 4 of the November agreement, 9/10 agreement. And this article says that all troops, Armenian troops, should be withdrawn and in parallel with the deployment of Russian peacekeeping forces. So the Russian peacekeeping forces were deployed, but not all forces were removed. And it looks like Russians now is not so eager to engage in that. And the second thing is the Lachin corridor, because we see that some military cargo and some military personnel moving along the Lachin corridor, because our understanding that it should be used for humanitarian purposes. So for the linkages between Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh and Armenia. But I would say, this is also within the process of reconciliation between Armenians and Azerbaijanis. And we still hear some, I would love to hear what my counterpart from Armenia said about the creating such situation when we don't need presence of any foreign troops. But we hear also some revanchist statements from the ground saying that we have to retake and fight back. So that issue should be also addressed somehow in the future. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Ms. Anush Beglоян, could you please tell us what do you think about some kind of specific activities on behalf of maybe Armenian diaspora internationally? And in regard with the last word that Ambassador Shafiev stated about revanchism, etc., could you please address, at least briefly, what's going on in Armenia at the moment? I mean, domestic politics.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to have some general maybe call to everyone, since the peace process, and as it was mentioned, the resolution of Nagorno-Karabakh conflict is far from the end, and the negotiations are still to be held on the final resolution and for the peace agreement, for the long-standing peace agreement. I would not want that we enter now into the stage of the of these negotiations, finding out who's and what is the status of Nagorno-Karabakh itself. And so when we say about the principle of territorial integrity, we have to mention two other important principles mentioned that are contained in the Helsinki Final Act, which is the peaceful resolution of the conflicts and right of people to self-determination, together with the principle of territorial integrity. Of course, I do not deny that it is there, but we have to consider these three principles together and do not give any preference to one principle. Especially, I think that the main principle here is non-use of the military force when resolving the conflict. So at this point, I would like to stop this discussion because here I think the main negotiations will be held by our ministries of foreign affairs, I hope with the mediation of the OSCE Minsk Group co-chairs. regarding the also I think that we have to look into the future, not to return to these endless disputes of who was the first, whose is this territory, historical overviews, etc. Because here, as you know, Armenians are the best for citing many ancient writers and doing all this kind of historical overviews. I don't want to enter into this because we have been doing this both sides for 30 years and it brought us to the war. Regarding the revanchist and other kind of announcements, I have to say that Armenia is a democratic country, and a lot of different political forces, different groups, including nationalistic groups, including many, politically engaged and maybe driven by the various motives, groups can announce anything they want. But I would like to call to everyone to listen to the announcements and to the statements made by the ruling party, by the authorities, by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Prime Minister's office, which and also members of parliament, which has clearly stated that revanchism and all kind of military solutions and living for revenge is not something that Armenia and Armenian people want and Armenian state is meant to be. So that when the Armenian media is monitored, it may create a wrong impression that this is something that is a position of our authorities, which is absolutely not. I would like to call everyone to follow official sources and official websites and official comments of our ministries and Prime Minister office. Regarding diaspora is an interesting issue. Armenian diaspora, especially after the post-war, is highly concentrated and is highly convinced that Armenia has to build a strong state which will be an equal partner for all countries in the region. So diaspora currently, I cannot speak on the every group because the Armenian diaspora is also very diverse and very has different thoughts and different visions, but the vibes that we hear from diaspora, especially those who have left Armenia recently after the collapse of the Soviet Union, is building Armenia, building Armenian national state, and building Armenia as a strong and equal partner in the region.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thank you. Dr. Aydın, could you please tell us how do you believe Turkey may play or should play some role in peacekeeping activities regarding that Armenia is not considering Turkey as a reliable partner in the region at the moment, and whether there is a role for Turkey in this peace-building process?
Well, that's unfortunate, of course, that the Armenian side Turkey but we have to address that too. I think what we need in the region is a confidence and trust building, and that's a quite important underlying point. It's not only between Armenia and Azerbaijan, but also Armenia and Turkey. We have issues also going back into the history, and everybody knows much detail, and we have talked about all this quite a lot. But the bottom line is, of course, if we are looking to the future, we have to stop somewhere to talk about the past and look into the future. And the one way of doing that is instead of instigating new doubts into each other, we have to try to build more confidences. And of course, Turkey could really help the situation because of its where it is geographically, and because of its economic connections to the region and what it could contribute to the region. Already we can see Turkish contribution, how useful the Turkish contribution is. We can see it in Georgia and we can see it in Azerbaijan. And of course, if you travel to Armenia before this conflict, the latest conflict, you could have seen so much Turkish product on the Armenian shops as well. So there was, even though the border was closed, and we had several thousands of Armenian citizens living in Turkey, working in Turkey, and getting back remittances to their own country. So these are just a couple of indications where we can prioritize the benefits to both countries and benefits, economic benefits to all the regional countries. Turkey is, of course, uniquely situated to create connections, all three countries of the Caucasus. And we can link them together. And of course, we have an ability and experience in multilateral cooperation initiatives. As I already indicated, for example, Black Sea Economic Cooperation Organization was one of the very earliest examples of that multilateral cooperations. Why not focusing on this kind of areas instead of focusing on the directly the conflicting situations? Because one of the academic studies tells us in this kind of conflicting situation, if you directly focus on the conflict, the foremost, it is likely to break somewhere, the dialogue. So you have to start from other issues and trying to build more trust, more confidence, so that then come back to the more intractable, more difficult issues of confidence, issues of conflict. One of the areas that we have to be careful, all the countries in the region, is the delicate position of Russian peacekeepers. Listening to the Ambassador Shafiev is, I'm learning now that even the mandate of those peacekeepers are not totally agreed at the moment. And we have other examples in the region where Russian peacekeepers have been existing for some time, and they are not always contributing to the peace and the stability in the region. So we have to be quite careful about their presence in Azerbaijani territory, and also we have to mention their presence in Armenian territory, not as peacekeepers, but as part of that they have with Armenia. And we are seeing, for example, we are seeing Russian border guards on the border between Armenia and Turkey. So, making a baby steps maybe, and starting the dialogue between Turkey and Armenia, maybe trilateral dialogue between Turkey, Armenia, and Azerbaijan, which we already have trilateral dialogue between Azerbaijan, Turkey, and Georgia. So this could kind of trilaterals could complement each other, and maybe we can build something bigger here.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. I would like to ask Ambassador Shota Gviniria. Yeah, you're here. Could you please tell me, first of all, is it a good time for Georgia to be proactive, as President of Georgia, Ms. Zurabishvili, stated not so long ago, as a regional platform, dialogue platform in South Caucasus? And secondly, she stated about so-called South Caucasus platform, where there's participation of Russia and Iran. You know about this platform, this project, which is very widely known. How do you evaluate this proposal and this project?
Well, thank you for this question, Igor. I very rarely agree with Madam President. Let's start with that. And I agree partly with her that Georgia has to play a more active role in the realities that are unfolding in the region. But I would say the way that I see Georgia's positive role there is to be a real stronghold and the foothold of democracy and the Western values there in the region, and to promote the interests and the values of NATO, of the EU, of our strategic partner, the United States. So that would be the best possible role that Georgia can play for itself and for the entire region. When and Helsinki Final Act was mentioned here, so I can only agree that the shared interest in the region is to strengthen the international rules-based system, which is the only possible guarantee for the small states to find themselves safe and secure in the position to think about further developments there. Because we have seen, you know, that this fragmentation of interests and strategic bilateral relations between different competing sides, this actually can bring us to some certain status quo. But then again, we do not have to confuse this status quo with new realities, because the reality is, the only reality in the region is that the interests of Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Georgia are inexplicably interlinked and intertwined between each other. And there is hardly too much space for any of us individually, you know, to go out and achieve some remarkable interest. Doesn't matter who our strategic partner will be and how much support, political or economic support, we will get from them. It's very simple that the healthy competition there is something that benefits everyone. And it was mentioned by Ambassador earlier that some experts are making comments in Tbilisi that Georgia, you know, risks to lose its vital role in the as the transportation route and its interconnectedness process. No, absolutely not. More regional cooperation and more cooperation between Armenia and Azerbaijan, better for Georgia, better opportunities and more opportunities for everyone. So it's one of the situations here where this competition will help everyone to create more specific opportunities. And I think, and I really think that the Western institutions as well as Western powers really need to invest more and more diversely, not only in some sort of economic opportunities or civil society engagements, which is very important. I'm not undermining this process in any ways, but this is not simply enough. We have been begging for years and years in Brussels to include security-related issues into the Eastern Partnership format. We're still struggling with that. Because this is controversial, because there are different opinions in different EU capitals about, you know, the security arrangements in the Black Sea region, in South Caucasus, doesn't matter. These issues have been sort of put on the roster, but it is not possible to think about the long-term sustainable development if you do not address those security issues in a strategic way. So that's why I'm curving back to my initial point that yes, we are in the same boat. Yes, we have to work together to create regional opportunities. And yes, we have to engage Western interests there much more actively to make sure that you know, we create more opportunities and possibilities for everyone to develop and not create this, you know, muddy waters for the destructive actors to use our dependence on them for their own advantage.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And I would maybe add that I would like to ask all our distinguished guests to take a closer look at what's going on in Georgia, because in Georgia we also have huge domestic problems and political crisis, one-party rule in the parliament. And of course, it is a challenge, especially in such a difficult period when Georgia should, as Ambassador Gviniera just said, be a country cooperating with the United States, NATO, European Union, etc. So,
just
please.
one little sentence, if I may,
Sure.
forgive me. It was heartbreaking for me to see one of the first statements from the White House, which was the press release following the telephone conversation between President Biden and President Putin. And the topics that they have discussed included many important issues, but the things that we are discussing here have not been hinted there, and alongside the pattern that we all are used to, supporting Georgia's sovereignty alongside when Ukraine's sovereignty is supported, at least for the United States, it's a existing and well-established pattern. It was not mentioned there. Georgia was not mentioned there at all, which speaks a lot about our foreign policy. It speaks a lot about how we managed to actually position ourselves as the strategic partners for the West and the stronghold and the gateway to the wider region for our Western friends and allies. So yes, I would support Igor's call. Please pay closer attention to what is going on in Georgia, ask questions, and actually engage much more actively to find out how much is the gap between the declared foreign policy and actual actions that are being taken by the current Georgian authorities.
Unfortunately. Yeah, please, Ambassador Shafiev, I would like to ask you to make your closing remarks and address the international community we have here today with the major challenges Azerbaijan is going through at the moment, because we heard a lot about some disagreements with Russia, some internal processes. So what are the main challenges you would like to ask international community to focus on in Azerbaijan?
Yeah, definitely. Today's discussion also manifests we have disagreement with Armenia, but I would like to focus on the general topic of today's discussion. It's the prospect of regional cooperation. And also it's not easy, and we see that also the format 3+3 is not like will go easily. So that's why we might think about to start or develop further what we have on the ground, like for example the format 3 countries: Azerbaijan, Georgia, Turkey, and then the Iran, Azerbaijan, Russia, there is the format of Iran, Armenia, Russia. So, and then as in the future the conditions permit, putting this puzzle together as a 6 countries format, though maybe somebody thinks it's far from real now, but in the future it might be. But I would like to tell you, despite the difficulties, despite the disagreements, including, as I said, we have some issues also to discuss with the Russian side. Azerbaijan is now, would like to engage with all countries, would like to seek the solution to all these problems, rather than trying to exacerbate them. So that's the position of Azerbaijan. I think as I said, the future of the region lies in the territorial integrity of 3 countries of South Caucasus: Georgia, I would underline, Azerbaijan and Armenia. Respect for this principle, respect for the ethnic minorities, development, the regional development. And then, of course, we have to engage with the external actors. And sometimes we have disagreements, like Armenia and Turkey has. Sometimes Azerbaijan has with other external actors, with Russia, with Iran, and we have the countries, United States, EU. United States has disagreement with Iran, which affects our region anyway, or US and Russia. But that's, as a former diplomat, I would like to believe now in think tank activities that to find the diplomatic solution for all these problems, because just to return the questions about the peaceful resolutions, this is indeed the ideal situation, but not ideal to wait 30 years for the diplomatic solution. So hopefully we won't wait another 30 years to find all these current problems to be resolved. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Ms. Anush Beglоян, please, your closing remarks in regard with trilateral cooperation and future of the South Caucasus, or maybe challenges you want to talk about in front of international community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, I would like to say that, of course, we have to learn to live in the region peacefully. It's not the multi-story house when you can sell your apartment and go to live somewhere else. We are bound to live as neighbors, all countries of the region. And for that, we have to learn. I'm talking not about only Azerbaijani society, but also about Armenian society, everyone. We have to learn to perceive each other as neighbors. For that, we need to start with the small practical things, like this meeting of the vice ministers discussing the transportation communications opening. Doesn't matter if this meeting will be ended with success or not, but the fact that the working group has formed is a positive development. That means that on the middle level, on the maybe low level, people will learn to talk to each other, to speak to each other, and to agree, disagree with respect. I think that one of the main challenges in the region, in all, especially, I think that we have to unfortunately say that a lot of, and the ambassador also said that he grew in the society where Armenians were perceived as so-called others, to learn to perceive each other as human beings and as equals, and stop thinking about each other as enemies.
I'm sorry for interrupting, but I've never said that I grew up in the society. I said that I grew up with the Armenian schoolmates. Sorry.
Oh, I see. Maybe I misunderstood. Anyway, the meaning is the same. I mean, we have to return then that feeling. And so my call is to find the ground zero and start from the zero and start learning to live in the region. What about the Russian peacekeepers? Very important also to accept that they are already in the region. Whatever has brought them here is already over. We cannot change this reality, so they are here. And since they are here and will be here for 5 years, we have to try and use this time to make sure that Armenians, and whether Azerbaijanis would like to return to their to Nagorno-Karabakh, also Azerbaijani people will learn to live in peace and also with the sense of security and trust to each other. So depending on the success of this endeavor, we will have foreign forces in the region either for another 5 years, or we will have a region secure and stable for the years to come. And regarding the Turkey, I was very interested to hear Mr. Aydın, Dr. Aydın's comments, and we have been hearing the vibes from Turkey and calls for maybe reconciliation and establishment of the trust that has been missing since 30 years. And so we think that this is the really complicated and interesting times that we will be living together. And maybe if the region will become maybe this balanced and the military exercises in the region will not be needed between the countries, maybe it will be a start of the good process of a dialogue, not only on the people level, but also on the government level. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. I think actually that it is some kind of beginning, because we have only, I don't know how many, 3 months, 2 months and a half after the war, and maybe it's still emotional, and processes are taking place in Armenia, in Georgia, are very difficult at the moment. I mean, political crises in both countries, and we have to maybe wait a little bit more to analyze the situation and maybe suggest some concrete specific activities, joint activities. But from Georgian perspective, I live in Georgia, Ambassador Gvinieri represents Georgia today. From Georgia perspective, this is a Caucasus platform with participation of Armenia, Georgia, Azerbaijan, Turkey, European Union, United States, and NATO allies. So today we have the first meeting of such kind of Caucasus platform, and I think it was very, very useful. And thanks again to you, our distinguished speakers and our distinguished guests. I believe that we will make such kind of formats each 2 months to discuss all developments, and maybe we will already see some specific steps to make in the framework of the second discussion. Thank you all for joining today, and thank you for your time.